Okay. Hello, everyone. I just thought I would bring together a summary, if I can, of the meditation and mindfulness program for the first month. So some of you have been to all the sessions, some of you just listened to the recordings, some of you have done both. Some of you may value the space to just do this once a week. Some of you may be more interested in how this is more integrated into mindful moments, into changing aspects of how you live your life on a day-to-day basis, how you respond, how you make sense of the world. So there's the just coming, there's the just listening, and then there's the how's this affecting me? What else could I do? How can I integrate things into my life? So you will all come with different things, and that will change over time, is my experience. So well done for coming, and thank you for coming as well, I need to say first. It helps me focus and practice perhaps with a little bit more concentration or this attention. So what we've been doing in terms of the practice sessions, so we've done quite a number of things each week that we've repeated. We've usually moved to be in our bodies and to be loosening and just find a little bit more potential comfort in our bodies, know what's going on there. We then tried to settle as much as we could, recognizing that to be comfortable, sometimes we then still have to adjust, but we're looking for a still place as we can find for the length of the practice. So that's movement, then movement to stillness. When we're in that still place, we might bring our attention even more fully into the body to really feel the contact points, really feel the ground, really feel kind of safe and connected. We will often then move on to where's the breath in the body? Where do we feel it? How do we experience it? How can we allow it? How can we connect to it? How can it nurture us, help us let go, help us grow and nurture? And we've also used quite a lot around our senses. They're so inbuilt, they're so connected to moment. So what do we see? What do we hear? What do we taste? What do we smell? What do we touch? What is that experience? And we either do that as it is, or we might do that within a visualization. So usually the last part of the formal practice that we do together has some visualization element to it, of which some people really get, really love, really connect to, and other people find that more difficult, and they kind of go off on their own stories and miss lots of it, or don't really get connected. Other people are just kind of really in that world, and they find it really, again, supportive and helpful and meaningful and deepening and all those things. So all these experiences, whether it's movement, whether it's stillness, whether it's body, whether it's breath, whether it's senses, whether it's visualization, is trying to support us to bring us back to the moment in different ways, to bring us back to what cuts away all that stuff, that energy, that emotional negativity, that looking back with dread, that looking forward with dread, that planning, those questions, that mind overactivity is trying to bring us down to a more peaceful state, a more connected state, a safer place. So sometimes we go to the ground and we really kind of settle in that support. Other times we might go wider, more spacious, more connected to the sky, more connected to the possibilities, to the fact that we have all this space around us. So we might be drawn to different places, or we might try out different places that we're less familiar with and see how we experience it. So those are broadly what we've been doing in terms of where we're taking our attention through the practice, and that's been trying to support us with being in the moment and being more deeply part of being part of our body and our breath, and bringing in the visualization to grow the good, and having various ways of doing that, connecting with ourselves, connecting with other people, connecting with places, connecting with our own strengths, our own positive life experiences. So drawing on what we can draw on, drawing on our own experiences, developing them and absorbing them in our own ways, finding our own language. I know I give you a lot of language, but ultimately sometimes the language might jar or not make sense, or be too soft, or be too hard, or be too confusing. So sometimes if I give you a word and it doesn't kind of work so well, I would invite you to try and find another word that does. I might use love and that might not work. I might use care and that might not work. So I try and give a number of different options if I can, but if you find something else that resonates with you when you're in the silence or after the practice, or when you might do a moment or two on your own, then really be prepared to change and use your own language that makes sense in those of that experience. So we've been working overall with the growing the good on the basis that we have a brain negativity bias, which is just so well researched and understood. But knowing that and being able to kind of work with tuning it down a little bit and tuning up the positive elements is a lifetime practice. That negativity bias is looking after us, so it's going to be there, it's going to be present. It's important, it has its role, it isn't a negative in some respects, it is keeping us safe. However, we can build our resilience and we can build the good and that sense that we can grow things within us by going through repeated practice of it. Whatever we practice, we become. The more we do something, the more we have something regular, routine, the more it becomes part of the everyday. Some of us are more naturally inclined to looking for the good, and some of us more inclined to dwelling on the negativity. So we have a starting point here. So some of us might be already finding that quite accessible, and others it might be kind of like really quite jarring. The world's difficult, my life's difficult. Don't tell me that there's good going on. There might be some resistance to that. There might be just some lack of experience of it, and it's tentative. It needs to be tentative. It needs to be dipped into. It needs to be real. It needs to feel that it matters that you're doing it, not that you're just doing it because you've been told it's going to be good for you or whatever. So and sometimes it feels good and sometimes maybe it doesn't feel as good. So we need to be honest that the experiences will change from day to day. We will be carrying things with us that will have a weight or an energy that lifts or that holds us into various states. So it's complex. I appreciate that. But again, the more we do from wherever we're at is still building up that skill, that strength. And there's this view that we can move from states. So these states that we create in that half an hour practice, if it's working for you, can be developed into longer term traits, if you like. So longer term ways of behaving in our lives. We're not just building it up and putting it down, building it up and putting it down, building it up and putting it down. We're building it up, building it up, building it up. in order for it just to become so familiar that it's more of a accessible in the moment, it's more accessible part of us that we kind of know and can sit with and know that that is actually part of our experience. Not a whole experience, but it's part of our experience. Okay, so we don't need to sit for half an hour. We might just have a moment. So there's those elements of the practice. There's that element of what our attention is to grow the good and the different ways we've explored growing the good. And then there's that, can we bring it into the moment, and how do we do that? So it might be that we do it at the end of the day, we do it at the beginning of the day, and all we need to do is to ask ourselves or to remind ourselves that something good is coming up, something good has just happened in the last day, that we can just sit in and savor for a moment to really know that's been part of our experience, we've not lost it. So we might do that before we go to bed. It's quite a common thing. I've probably mentioned this before, of kind of, we might not be able to get to sleep, or we might be able to get to sleep quite easily, but before we get to that really sleepy stage, then we might just recall one or more things that was good or we can look forward to tomorrow, and hopefully we'll drift off more with that in mind rather than the other stuff that's around. So I'm going to give you one other practical thing that you could do. I think it's really important to have some practical things. So one of the things that you could try out and see how it fits is at the end of your week or at the beginning of your week, you could be looking ahead to the following week and write down. It's really important that we don't just always just think it and then let it go. Writing things down adds another level of sinking in, really. So you could write maybe 3 things down, maybe 1 thing down, maybe 5 things down that you're looking forward to next week. Yeah, that looks like it's going to be positive, enjoyable, exciting, whatever, and write those down. Try and find one. Now, if you haven't got one, then the task is to put one in your diary. It might be a walk out, it might be a meal, it might be a conversation with a friend. In some ways, because of the COVID thing, we're for some people, the usual things that they found really fulfilling may be less accessible. They might not be able to do it now. So most people have got other things well beyond what we can't do. But if you're feeling like a lot of the things you normally do are not available, then think wider. Think wider, and I'm sure you can find things. So what next week are you going to be looking forward to? And then, is there a challenge that you are actually feeling a bit anxious about, or a little bit, it's a challenge, but actually it's got really quite a holding or stressful feeling when you kind of start to think about it? If there is one, probably best not to go into too much detail on those, because then you just get wrapped up in it. But maybe there's 1 or 2 things that you think, okay, that's a little bit concerning for me now. Then next to that, you would write, is there the things that you could do to take away some of that pressure? It may not be going to be the best experience in the world. However, it might be that you could do something that's going to be more supportive. It might be that you don't do it, that you don't need to actually do it, that you just thought you needed to do it, but actually when you think it through, you don't need to do it anyway. It may be something that actually somebody else would be much more equipped to do, either has the time, has the skills, has the experience, and actually maybe it's something that you can ask somebody else to do, or chat with somebody else to get the that experience of how to do it better for yourself or feel a little bit more calm. It might be just get support before you do it, that you just talk to somebody and say, I'm going into this really difficult situation, I just need to chat. Or it might be that you go through it and it is quite difficult, and that you have some way of getting support at the end of it. You debrief, you chat, you go for a walk, you know you're going to do something that's going to release the energy that's been created, or it's just balancing things a little bit more, rather than thinking, I don't know, when I come out of that, I just don't know how I'm going to be or whatever. So there's finding the good things to look forward to. There's recognizing there might be a challenge that's going to create some stress for you. There's the ways then that you could potentially grow some resilience, make some decisions now rather than in the moment or after. You're planning in advance. All these things might just give you a little bit more sense of some power and some possibilities. Don't keep going on and on and on about the difficult things. Just come up with an idea and give it a try. No big deal. It may work, it may not work. It may not work as good as you think. It may work better than you think. Yeah, just go with that. So sometimes that for some people, like, if you're working, you've had a working week, you might be a little tired, but on the Friday, you would prefer to do that task than leave it till Sunday, when you might start thinking, I might get more distressed about the things it's Monday morning. I can put those things aside and have my weekend if I do it on the Friday, and I just think of the good thing, the challenge, and how I can deal with it, and then I put that aside, and then I might look at it on Monday morning or whatever when I need to. Or you could think, I'll leave it till Sunday. Sunday is I want to get into the weekend, I need to recover, and then Sunday at some point, when you have enough energy to do this and enough support to do it, don't do it when you're feeling really knackered or really upset. Do it when you feel okay, neutral or better. And then the good thing and the challenge, ways to deal with it. Okay, so a few practical things, a few reminders, a bit of a summary. I hope I've not overwhelmed you with all of that. The beauty of it being a recording is you can go back and listen again to my mutterings. Okay, so hopefully that's been helpful. For those of you that are enjoying it or finding it useful or just want to keep going, then we will be returning next week as usual, usual time, etc. And we're moving on to month 2. I'm still playing around with the words to summarize what we're going to be doing over the next month. The practice elements will be continued, but we'll have a different focus here for the next month. But I don't want you to lose this month, so if you can continue that with this idea of what you might do in the morning or in the evening, and maybe if it feels useful, the planning ahead to the next week, then those are 2 activities you could practically do. Okay, so thank you again, and recognizing that we're a community, even if we don't know each other well, and that, we feed off each other's presence, whether we're in the room or whether we know there's a group of us kind of getting on with this together and developing our skills, really, or practices. Thanks again. Take care. Have a good day.